Logan, you've been doing this for a long time in this industry. What advice would you give to companies that want to perhaps avoid a fail like this in the first place?
Yeah, as you alluded to, I've been doing this for 12 plus years, which is often something I don't like to admit. But with that, I've had the opportunity to work for a couple different solution providers in a couple different areas. So the number one thing that I always would encourage people, or if I found myself being brought into an organization on the other side, looking to evaluate automation, not just for AP, but obviously for AP in particular, is make sure you know the difference between the types of solutions that are out there. What's a native solution? What are the pros and cons of a native solution? What else is available? External solutions. There's a lot of different buzzwords out there now. There's the P2P, S2P, right? What is a procure-to-pay system? What is it designed to do? What's the difference between a source-to-pay system? And then is the system designed to be able to handle those? I think it's those two different buckets of expenditures, right? The indirect spend and the direct spend. If your organization is typically just operational expenses, you don't have a lot of cost of goods sold, a lot of inventory, there's a lot of different options out there that can handle those types of solutions or those types of processes, if you will. But if you look at your own needs and where you might be in the future, do we have some more complexities in these processes? Do we have to have POs? If we don't have POs today, is it a goal of ours to have POs in the future? And be able to really document these types of things. It always amazes me when I'm talking to an organization and they all, like I said, kind of have the same initial goals. We want to become more efficient. We want to control costs, but they hardly ever have taken the time ahead of time to go in and kind of speak internally and formally document their requirements. Because I think if you can educate yourself on the different types of solutions, what goes into these more complex needs, and more importantly, know what your needs are both now and in the future, it can allow you to make sure you're asking the right questions and also kind of avoid those traps of falling into just kind of taking people when they're throwing around some of those buzzwords, right? Like, oh, we do three-way matching. Yes, we integrate with this ERP. And yes, we have AI, right? But what does that really mean? And how deep can they go with it? The other thing that we often talk about, right? Like, and I think this is a difference or something to think about from like a native solution versus an external solution. How is when you're going into that native solution, you're essentially just using a system that is becoming a mile wide and an inch deep. So they do everything, but they don't necessarily do a lot of these other things very well. Where are their R&D dollars going into this product, right? How quick are they going to be to kind of being on the forefront of the automation advances that are coming, frankly, very quick? AI is something that's a very popular buzzword, and the applications of it are seemingly endless. But how can it be applied to this solution? And frankly, it's not cheap for a company to be able to deploy this AI software. So what is their strategy around it? Do they have growth plans? Are they investing in it? Those R&D dollars, like I said. Again, integration. I think this is the number one thing that we end up running into with a new client when we're onboarding them. How is the integration deployed? Is it just a flat file or is it an API? And if it's an API, what are the data points that can be shared between your ERP and this external solution? Because again, one of the things I've heard on the NetSuite side of clients we talk to is there's a lot of companies that integrate to NetSuite, but their integration doesn't include the scoping for like PO or receiving information. So again, that just kind of brings us back to, right, the more you can kind of educate yourself as to what's important and think about those types of data points, how we code things. Freight is another big one we see with manufacturing companies, right? And it seems like every company handles freight differently, and they also handle it in their ERP differently. So the more that you can kind of get a framework around that to communicate that to these solutions that you're talking to and have that documentation to show them. And we're even starting to get to the point where we're becoming more and more what we require, like a statement of work. It's going to detail all of these things so that we can, as to the best of our ability, help to educate our clients around what matters and what they're going to need to account for so that you can then go to these other solutions you're looking at and ask more pointed questions.
Great. Thank you very much for that advice, and thank you for sharing that story, Logan.